Let me in your world, you know. That's why you're looking lonely, you know, boy, that's why. I wanna be your lady, la 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 la. Might vex you, you know what I would if I could, if I could, if I could.
What's poppin', my fellow Barbies and Kens? It is I, Ken, with a hidden tragic art guy here, and today we will be delving deep into the whimsical territories of Barbieland and traversing the post-war trenches of Japan. Wait, is this allowed? Anyways, I guess y'all are due for another meeting with this narrator guy. He is so hard to get through, I swear to God. His energy is way off the charts. That's why I try to methodically plan out the way on how to brainwash him. I mean, show him the ways of how to be a Ken, and how he could be able to tap into his inner energy. For now, oh shit. Remember, you are enough.
My Barbie doll is really real.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
What you have just witnessed may very well provide y'all a clear introduction to this phenomenon, the Barbenheimer Phenomenon. Now, what is the Barbenheimer Phenomenon, you may ask? Well, if you are living under a rock, it was a very popular internet phenomenon that mainly started with the idea of two films simultaneously releasing on the same date. These films are, you guessed it, Greta Gerwig's Barbie and Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. Also, it made sense for it to have such a cultural upbringing considering that these two films differ from one another in both in style and in tone. The first film is more of a fantasy and comedy love letter to both Barbie fans and haters alike. If you refuse to believe me, the trailer literally says it right in your face. While the other film is a dark and emotionally bone-chilling biography that tackles a very heavy subject. Before going any further, I also gotta take into account that this isn't the first time that a phenomenon like this has happened. In 2008, we witnessed the release of two very distinctly different films that eventually garnered a cult following, Mamma Mia and The Dark Knight. Both of these films released on July 18th of that year. What's very hilarious, and I'm sure it's not just me, but it's the sheer fact that Nolan's movies always have to go head-to-head with a film that has a lead blonde actress. Anyhow, back to Barbenheimer. As I was saying, the difference in tone with the two clashing films made all the more reason for box office predictions to blow through the roof. And no, that was not a pun, and no, I will absolutely make no jokes about Japan and bombs. Not to mention, each film is both produced by husband and wife production companies. For Barbie, it was Lucky Chap Entertainment, which was mainly spearheaded by Margot Robbie and her now husband, Tom Ackerley. And for Oppenheimer, it was none other than Sin Copy, a production company spearheaded by Nolan and his wife, Emma Thomas. Another thing in common with these films is that they have a huge ensemble cast. I mean, honestly, if you put me in the same room as Cillian Murphy and Rami Malek, two very talented actors with flawless jawlines, I would probably blow up harder than nope, not gonna do it. Lastly, each film is handled by directors who not only have Oscar buzz written all over their names, but have a clear vision for each of their films over the years. The simultaneous release date in question has always been under a lot of questions like, who in their right mind would release two of the most anticipated films on the same date? The answer? Well, because they can. A rumor has also popped up in regards to why this decision has been made, specifically for Barbie's case, because this film is backed up by Warner Bros. And which director at the top of your mind has always been associated with this distribution company? Christopher Nolan, that's who. In late 2020, the middle of the cough cough sniffle sniffle season, it made a heavy impact towards Warner Media, the parent company of Warner Bros. As a result, most of their films that were supposedly on the go for theatrical releases have switched over to the realm of streaming, which in turn, they've made the decision to instead release those films digitally on their streaming service HBO Max. And yes, I am still calling it that. Who the fuck is Max anyway? One of those films was Tenet, a film directed by Nolan. The decision was polarizing to him, and it made him cut ties with the studio altogether. And that was when he signed on the deal with Universal Pictures for Oppenheimer. The rumor goes that Warner Bros. Purposely made Barbie release on the same day as Oppenheimer as a sort of a fuck you to Nolan for a very reasonable breakup. But, well, We all know how that plan ultimately backfired. All in all, I think that while this phenomenon has proven time and time again that the internet meme culture will forever cement itself into another piece of our pop culture history, I think that it's also a very fun time for fellow moviegoers like myself to invest most of their weekend to get a bite out of two main courses. They may be different, but the consensus always remains the same. This is some serious gourmet shit. It's just a goddamn good time to be at the movies right now. It has also popularized the phenomenon even further when memes took the said phenomenon by storm. A tremendous number of them with the same subject, seeing both films on either opening day or opening weekend. For others, they'd start the day off with Oppenheimer as the main course, and then end it off with Barbie as the dessert to mask the depression that the first film has provided to them. While for some, they'd go the other way around, starting their day off with Barbie and then going to see Oppenheimer, and hell, who knows, they might even watch both films projecting all at the same time, because who needs their sanity check when you got to experience a historical breakthrough? Student loans? More like student full loans. Let me rent out a theater for Barbenheimer! The Barbie doll is and always has been a positive influence towards young girls. And honestly, it's even a miracle that Greta Gerwig even signed on to do a film based on the popular toy line, because looking back now, the amount of marketing has grown significantly higher. I mean, have any of y'all ever come to our Krispy Kreme? They sell Barbie-themed donuts, and they're the fucking hell. Throughout many decades, the doll has inspired the same message that's been taught to every little girl. She's given them a reason to be proud of their female independence, and that any girl has a right to a career that's beyond their wildest dreams. But behind the pink-colored curtains lies an unfortunate, harsh reality. As a kid, I have been accustomed to the stereotypical belief that if a young boy dares to even play with toys advertised for little girls, you are not safe to the immense amount of eyes being rolled at you by your fellow peers at school. And God forbid, if you even try to look over the doll aisle at a toy store, you'll be greeted by the same look of confusion from the kids passing by you. Looking back towards those years now, and while the stereotype has proven itself to be just that, a stereotype, I can't help but worry that this type of mindset is still being applied, or in this case, being engraved into the minds of children. Who cares if you're a girl and you play with action figures? Who cares if you're a boy and you love playing with dolls as a favorite pastime? Toys are meant to be used as tools for play and imagination, not as tools for humiliation. Because at the end of the day, these toys, while they serve a tremendous purpose in the market, have a way of influencing the kids of tomorrow, and like Barbie, they make you feel like no one's above you and that the world is your playground. And then there's me, a 21-year-old still losing his shit over not completing half of the Stranger Things Funko Pop line.
I don't have a problem.
Alright, Ken, I think it's about time you cut the bullshit and let Quin take over your subconscious for a while. This is the part where we talk about Barbie simultaneously.
What are you talking about, man? This is me. This is Ken. What the F word is this B word gonna do with my body? Is he gonna use to fondle himself? He's gonna fondle Ken? The only person who should be allowed to fondle Ken is Ken. And Ken alone.
Jesus fucking... It'll only be for a short while and you can have your body back, okay? It's just... I really need Quin on this one, man. Also, did you just put on sunglasses just to dramatically take them off?
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I guess. How do I know when to get back, though?
Oh, I actually hotwired the programming inside your brain to manually shift you in and out of consciousness for a specific period of time. You know, Doctor Strange stuff.
I don't know who that is, but just make it quick. What the fuck? Where am I? What am I wearing? Wait. Is it time?
You know what to do.
Very well. Wait, are you saying that Ken was one of the variants that got...
Barbie! Yes! Finally! A film that really speaks to the modern audience and totally not referencing the fact that every time someone on the interweb sees a woman as a protagonist, they immediately feel the need to plug in their mic and go,
Women are bad, Lamau. Why don't they want to fuck me?
The film follows Barbie and Ken having the time of their lives in the colorful and seemingly perfect world of Barbie Land. However, when they get a chance to go to the real world, they soon discover the joys and dangers of living among humans. I don't know how I'll be able to get my thoughts and feelings across without saying that Greta Gerwig is among one of the most influential directors working in the industry today. I absolutely held Little Women close to my heart, and ever since then, I had no idea what was in store for her. And that was until this teaser popped up. Never in my goddamn life have I ever expected a Barbie movie, a live-action one at that, to come up next in Greta's lineup of filmography. The opening introduction to the teaser was clearly a straight reference to Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, and to complete the icing on top of an already deliciously exquisite cake, of course they chose Helen Mirren as the narrator.
Since the beginning of time, since the first little girl ever existed, there have been dolls.
After watching that teaser, I was ecstatic and filled to the brim with wild expectations. Because Barbie and Greta Gerwig? I couldn't think of a better matchup. It's like PB&J. The only difference is the peanut butter is colored pink.
Oh man, why does my PB&J taste like the complexities of a matriarchal society?
As soon as the film starts, it immediately immerses you into the world of Barbieland, and I was blown away with the amount of practicality, the fact that everything looks like it was straight out of a kid's playset. It was to the point where I was literally watching a little girl's imagination come to life, just with a tiny sprinkle of existential crisis. The world that Greta and the crew have created was definitely a showcase of prowess, but it wouldn't be complete, of course, without its stellar cast. Margot Robbie as Barbie, or as what she's referred to in the film as stereotypical Barbie. I couldn't even think of better words to say other than she was fucking terrific in this film. As what's always expected from her, Margot immediately disappears to every single role that she plays, and this was surely one of them. Right down to the complex series of emotions being evoked by Barbie, to how she pretty much steals every single frame of the film. From the way she tries to combat her emotions through a forced smile, right down to the gorgeous outfits that she rocks that were actually references to Barbie dolls of yesteryears. Fun fact, the one that Margot wears in the teaser was actually a reference to the 1959 Barbie swimsuit doll. Ryan Gosling as Ken. Enough said. Nah, I'm just kidding. Look, you couldn't possibly remind me of this man's existence through a series of memes and cringy-ass TikTok edits. I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm pretty sure he's well aware of it right now. He's practically shitposting in an interview on the set of the film.
And they're canning so hard that they're gonna can themselves blind if they don't stop canning.
He was fucking hilarious as Ken. And I gotta tell you, there wasn't a single moment in the theater where everyone would go silent whenever he's on screen. This guy can practically breathe air and people would lose their shit, including me. I gotta tell y'all, when they first introduced this character, I can immediately tell that he was no longer the guy from Drive, Officer K from Blade Runner, or hell, throw in fucking Jacob Palmer from Crazy Stupid Love in there. All I saw was Ken. And you wouldn't forget it. There's literally a song about Ken singing about the complicated life of being a Ken. It's a straight up banger. The best piece of music since Hey Jude by the Beatles.
A lot of people are not talking about this actor enough, but I'm glad that this film is now giving her more and more attention in the public eye. I'm of course talking about America Ferrera. She plays a Mattel employee and a mother who has a struggling relationship with a daughter named Sasha, played by Ariana Greenblatt. If the name doesn't sound familiar to most of you, if the name doesn't sound familiar to some of y'all, does Ugly Betty ring a bell? Does Astrid Hofferson from the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy ring a bell? She was nothing short of terrific in this film, and she had very good chemistry with the rest of the cast, most especially with Barbie. I may be contradicting myself a bit, but I felt like that this needed to be said. Her character was basically the powder keg to the match of the film's running conflict. And no, I will not tell you what it is. You're gonna have to watch the film for yourself.
Alrighty, let's address the elephant in the room here now. I just know that people are going into this film expecting something they've already seen before from a typical Barbie movie. The overexposure of the color pink, the stereotypical emotional tones of the characters, and most of all, the lessons to be taught and learned to kids. While some of those expectations were somehow met, albeit in the film's own special way of subverting them, it is a very mature themed film with a surprising amount of adult humor thrown into the mix. This film is rated PG-13. When the hell are you ever gonna find a Barbie movie that's rated PG-13? Nowhere! Barbie's key plot points deal heavily about the realities of being human and what it's like to finally come out of your shell, to finally be in control of your life, and not what others expect you to be. And Greta did a very good job at translating that on film, because not only does it tackle different lessons about women and the complexities of being a woman in today's society, it's a big wake-up call for people who just need time to discover who they are and who they really want to be in this world. Barbie also has its emotional moments, and I always find myself on pause whenever those scenes played out before me, and I kept internally saying to myself, I can't believe I was close to crying in a Barbie movie. A fucking Barbie movie.
The only problems that I really have with Barbie are surprisingly very minor, but they are still problems nonetheless. First of all, I want to know how much they paid Will Ferrell to be in this, because Jesus fucking Christ. There is a whole nother segue to the plot that's proven to be more beneficial than whatever the fuck his character is up to. He plays a stereotypical businessman villain, and not saying that this is his first time playing a stereotypical businessman villain. He's the CEO of Mattel, and he's basically Jim Carrey's Eggman, just without the charisma and the funny. Because God forbid if you even try to sit up in your chair expecting to laugh with the bits of scenes that he's in. Well, that's kind of hypocritical of me. I mean, there are some scenes where his character made me at least chortle. And speaking of a handful, he really had nothing of significance to bring to the plot whatsoever to begin with. I kind of got the feeling that Greta and the crew decided to add him last minute before filming, because all throughout the film it took a while for the pacing to cut through and remind us that, hey, remember this guy? Yeah, because we totally didn't even know it looks that way, but existential crisis jokes. Hey! Overall, despite my minor problems with Barbie, Greta, the cast and crew took home a big fat W with this one, and it made me genuinely excited for the future of Greta's directorial career. The film is filled to the brim with hilarious jokes, accompanied by a colorful cast of characters brought to life by its near perfect writing. Alright, it's about time we wrap this up. Can I please have my body back? Because the amount of patriarchy and toxic masculinity that I'm feeling right now is very uncomfortable.
Now hold on just a second.
Jesus, what more could you possibly want with me? I don't even know what you look like. You sound like a Wikipedia article version of me.
First of all, that's insulting. And second of all, you're only allowed permission to leave this body if you can phone him in.
No. No, absolutely. No. No, absolutely not. You told me he wasn't going to be a part of this. You know how I feel about this guy.
Do you wish freedom or permanent exposure to the complexity of society's crippling expectations of masculinity?
Fuck me. Fine, I'll call him.
Speak.
You know what this is about, right?
You take me for an idiot? Of course I know what this is about.
Alright, look, just get yourself over here. I'm due for another meeting with the others.
I'm on my way.
You are the man who gave them the power to destroy themselves. And the world is not prepared.
7.
Nothing sets the bomb more than these bowl of spicy noodles.
Alright, he says it's on his... What the hell?
Oh, while you were on the phone, it was more or less a mere distraction, enough for me to return you back to your molecular form. You don't have to worry about Quin. At least, I hope wherever he is now, he's still kicking.
Oh, thank God. Wait, where's Quin now?
I have been asked whether there are specific countermeasures against the atomic bomb. I know that the bombs that we make in Los Alamos cannot be exploded by such countermeasures. I do not think there is any foundation for the hope that such countermeasures will be found.
That, my dear friends, was American theoretical physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, or you may obviously know him as the father of the atomic bomb. Now, I'm not here to be one of those guys who sprouts up endless statements in regards to whether or not this guy was an American war hero. Rather, I am here to spark up a conversation regarding his renowned contributions to the war that has unfortunately opened Pandora's box. With the release of Christopher Nolan's biopic based on the biography accounting the many triumphs and tragedies that made up the man's life, we've got to continuously ask ourselves this question: what happens if time is all we got? And what happens when we run out of it? According to most documentations, Oppenheimer was deeply regretful and terrified over the terrible power that he had unleashed out into the world. In other words, his great mind made him utilize his skills to make the deadliest weapon known to mankind, the atomic bomb. All the while, the government that he thought had his side all throughout eventually turned on him. Much like the film, his story is basically a wake-up call to global leaders and politicians who are still very much in continuous ignorance over the possible threat of nuclear war. The bombings on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were merely just the start of it all, and it's only a matter of time before these weapons, which are still laying dormant, with our world leaders and their governments waiting for the right time to hit that button. And it will undoubtedly start a chain reaction that will engulf the earth in hellfire. It's honestly a very existentially terrifying thing to think about. And not that I mean to alarm any of y'all, but I feel like that this needed to be said. And most especially whereas we are already in the midst of an ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and not to mention the complete total silence between the US and Russia. A little bit of a history lesson before we segue into the discussion of the film Oppenheimer. In the man's farewell address to the Association of Los Alamos Scientists in the month of November 1945, he stated, and I quote, "Atomic weapons are a peril which affects everyone in the world. I think that in order to handle this common problem, there must be a complete sense of community responsibility, straight from the man himself. And I could even say it better myself other than responsive actions must be done if we do not want to repeat history." Oppenheimer. Based on the 2005 biography, American Prometheus, the film is directed by Christopher Nolan and stars Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, and Robert Downey Jr. The film follows Oppenheimer and a team of scientists along with a collaboration with the US military and their years of developing and designing the atomic bomb, which, as it wasn't obvious enough, forever changed the course of history. How could I continue on to discuss this film further without mentioning that this was without a doubt one of my most anticipated films of the summer. Christopher Nolan is and remains as one of my favorite directors of all time. And not only because he has his own unique way of reeling the audience in through a different scope of lens with storytelling, but the fact that he is probably one of the only remaining directors out there who would rather stick to tradition rather than adapt to the new. This man still uses traditional film, with his reason being that he'd rather continue on with the tradition rather than letting it become extinct. And as someone who has been watching his movies and as someone who has extensively looked further into the countless interviews of his techniques, I wholeheartedly get why he chooses to remain in that path. Not that I have anything against digital, it's just the fact that with the way how we go about things, we are straying further and further away from the traditional technique.
And with the amount of hype generated from the marketing team of this film, Oppenheimer is definitely, in my opinion, one of Nolan's most ambitious films to date. I think the last one that he did that was beyond ambition was Dunkirk. And in that movie, if I'm not mistaken, he strapped an IMAX camera to a fucking plane. And they almost lost that camera because there was a scene where a plane had to nosedive into the ocean. Not only that, but this feels like a film that you genuinely cannot miss. Like, it's an event for the ages. And I'm not just talking about the fact that it's about a man that literally invented the most deadliest weapon ever conceived. It's also the fact that Nolan is the kind of director that you really will follow no matter what. This man is literally preserving traditional film, and it's very obvious from the amount of effort that he and the crew have put into this film, based on the behind the scenes footage that I've seen from the marketing. And did it pay off? Well, you bet your ass it did. There's nothing else more I could say other than
this film was one of, if not one of the greatest films Nolan has ever made. Now, this might not come as a shock to anyone else, but you've got to understand that there will never be a film like Oppenheimer. None. Period. It's a film where you really need to take a few seconds to process what the fuck you just saw, and those few seconds would eventually turn into a whole minute. Oppenheimer is easily comparable to a child making himself comfortable before falling asleep. But in the middle of the night, it turns out that that very same child couldn't fall asleep at all. Their eyes are still bloodshot open. Why? Some may say it could be because of an embarrassing memory that their brain has suddenly sprouted up from the depths of their deep subconscious, but no, it's existential dread and questioning the future of our mere existence. That's Oppenheimer. It's both an existentially thought-provoking and depressing gift box wrapped up in a bow of absolute dread. Cillian Murphy. I honestly can't believe this is the same guy who played Scarecrow in Thomas Shelby. I couldn't think of a better man for the job other than him. He absolutely delivered on this role. I swear to God, the moment this film starts, he was literally right in your face. And I gotta give context to this. I watched this in IMAX and holy shit! You can literally see that he gave it his all. to the point where he actually looks just as emaciated as the real J. Robert Oppenheimer. To further add to this, after walking out of this film, I immediately flocked over to YouTube to binge watch different interviews of Oppenheimer himself. And honestly, even with the way he speaks, it's just that specific voice alone, his mannerisms. Cillian Murphy perfectly replicated it, because that's literally what he sounds like in the film. It's almost quite terrifying. He literally disappeared into this role. Like, this isn't Cillian, this isn't Jonathan Crane or Thomas Shelby. Motherfucker, that's Oppenheimer. It's him. He's literally him. Emily Blunt didn't have that much to work with in terms of moving the plot forward, but that was until she was in frame, and once she was, you can literally feel the flame roaring and roaring even more. She plays Kitty, Oppenheimer's wife, and I gotta say that despite her limited amount of screen time, she was pretty good in the film. There was just this one particular scene where her character was being questioned about her background as a former Communist Party member. And if we all have seen the film already, then you know what I'm talking about. She's a very feisty character, and you can't help but smile whenever she sprouts up some logical sense within her dialogue. Matt Damon plays General Groves, a goal-oriented man who, based on historical accounts, had a very complicated relationship with Oppenheimer. That's not saying that there wasn't anything good that came out of it. There was, but there was a sense of a forceful push that required an immense amount of effort to be done. Damon was able to capture that same feeling perfectly alongside Cillian, thanks to Nolan's superb screenplay. It's almost like a short-lived buddy moment whenever these two were on screen together, and you can sense the way his character was starting to warm up to Oppie and the importance of their shared partnership. Robert Downey Jr. plays Louis Strauss, or better known as the man who had ultimate beef with Oppenheimer. The Joker to his Batman, the Plankton to his Mr. Krabs. It will take some time for most viewers to separate Downey from his role as the Man in Iron, but in the case of this film, he was able to prove most of us wrong. I couldn't stress enough how much I wanted to dive straight into the screen to absolutely sucker punch the guy. And that just proves my point that he acted his fucking ass off in this film, because his character is the absolute antithesis of who he is as a person in real life. And everyone knows you can't spell Robert Downey Jr. without Jr. Robert Downey Jr. The amount of tension between Strauss and Oppenheimer has always been documented as a rather intense rivalry, and both him and Cillian perfectly replicated that same tension all throughout the film.
Many of you may assume that this film is going to be mainly focusing on the invention of the atomic bomb, and some of you may be going into this film solely expecting that it's going to be about the atomic bomb. Now I want you all to form one straight single file line outside the theater, because clearly your expectations belong out there. The whole vital point of the plot moving forward with this film is literally in the name itself, Oppenheimer. It's about the man himself. The trailers may make it out to be that this film is just going to be 3 hours of us delving deep into the Manhattan Project and the aftermath of it all. And while there are parts that justify those elements of the story being present, it is still very far away from what the trailers make it out to be. This is a in-depth character study of a man who's been through so much shit even prior to inventing the atomic bomb.
Despite my obviously high praise for this film, I also gotta address the fact that this isn't a film for everyone. And as I mentioned earlier, some of you may have your own platter of expectations, but I think it's also safe for me to say that even though they don't represent a good majority of those set expectations, there's still something to get out of this film. Like, for instance, each scene was meticulously planted with its own seed of purpose, and thanks to the absolutely magnificent score by Ludwig Göransson, combined with the masterful cinematography of Hoyte van Hoytema, Oppenheimer made you feel like you were along for the ride with Oppenheimer himself. And there was not even a single second where the camera isn't pointing directly at him.
There are certain parts of this film that play through back to back. There's the security hearings and of course the Manhattan Project. Nolan and the crew were able to capture that moment in history and to compose it in a way that made me in particular invested and sitting up on the edge of my seat. Of course, before I go any further, Nolan is not only known for preserving the traditional techniques of cinema, he's also known for refusing to use any CGI whatsoever. And with a film of this size, of this magnitude, production alone costs $100 million US. You would expect that at the very least they would be able to slip in any semblance of computer-generated special effects. And I was, and still surprised, that he was able to simulate an atomic bomb explosion nonetheless, practically, without any computer-generated special effects. Absolute cinema. Overall, Oppenheimer is truly a piece of masterclass in filmmaking. And I absolutely wouldn't be surprised if Christopher Nolan would happen to make another film
of this scope, because you can bet my entire life savings, well, at least some of them that I totally used to evade my taxes, that I will be there opening weekend. While it does pose a challenge to certain viewers' attention span, the 3-hour runtime was just the right amount of duration and justifies such an immersive achievement in storytelling.
While Barbenheimer has cemented itself as one of the biggest cinematic events in film history, there's really no telling when there's going to be another one like it. In the case of Mamma Mia and The Dark Knight, it took them a decade before someone was able to double not only its success, but its relevance in pop culture history as a whole. Thematically, each of these films are very different in terms of their genre, the full extent of the message that it tries to translate to the audience. At the end of the day, these films were proven to be absolute big financial successes at the box office, with Barbie of course leading the charge with Oppenheimer chasing the trail behind. As the audience, we are led to believe that we are entitled to our own choice of entertainment, and studio executives are getting more creative with their marketing campaigns, but unfortunately at the cost of their own morality. Case in point, the still ongoing writer's strike. Then again, I think that this phenomenon was definitely a benefit for both parties, mainly because it's very healthy for the industry, because ever since the cough cough sniffle sniffle era started, movie theaters have nearly become a thing of the past, and would it really take that long before they would go the way of the dinosaurs and die off into obscurity like the physical media? Furthermore, I really appreciate the benefits that this phenomenon has brought onto our pop culture, because not only are we able to be given a choice with our own choice of entertainment, but it's the fact that our own choices are challenged by the fact that both choices seem very favorable. What's on your mind?
It's nothing. It's just, I'm not really as intimidating as others make me out to be, right?
Well, I'm the narrator, the back voice in everyone else's subconscious in the department, so really I have no say in that question. But I did overhear Quin inviting you over for dinner just now.
Think I should go? It's just, I'm so tired of being seen as the intimidating guy in the room. I mean, it's not my fault that I look like a well-mannered individual who has a personality of a once relevant film critic from Quin's past.
Whoa now, getting too deep in there. Just go and have some fun. I hear they're having noodles.
But I just ate noodles!
Quin!
Ugh, fine. But as soon as it's done, you gotta brief me more into this.
Later.
What did you call these noodles again? The bomb. God damn it.